Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you. Hello. Some feedback. See? It's ironic that I actually can't see your faces, so I'll have to pretend you're all smiling. You've heard actually a lot of great talks about feedback and about social design and interconnectivity. It's actually a really great way for us to learn more about who we are as individuals by looking at the collective audience around us. But I want to take a step back and talk about sort of where this came from. Let's talk about design, not the way things look or the way they feel, but about how they work and why they work, more importantly. As living creatures, we all have needs in order to continue to exist. And design is really the fulfillment of the need that the environment elicits. Because no matter where you go or what you do, you're always in some kind of situation, some kind of context, some kind of environment, which dictates not only the problems that need solving, but also the constraints around which you must design. Now, when the universe began, allow me to pull back into space here. For those of you who follow the Big Bang Theory, not the TV show, it was an explosion of particles that were chaotically swirling around and colliding with one another. And over time, they began to form larger, more stable elements, like the galaxies and the planets and the stars. And now you get where we are now, the Earth, where life actually began. Finally, the most stable thing we found in the universe that allowed us the ability to actually have life. But even the Earth isn't really that stable. Because as we know, it's actually very chaotic. We have a lot of crazy storms that can do some serious damage. We have harsh weather conditions. We have harsh environments, make it difficult to find food and water. There are predators out there that are trying to eat you. And there are diseases out there that are doing the same, but from the inside. And this isn't really good for us as stable elements trying to continue our existence. So when we're faced with this challenge of living inside of this environment, we've got to figure out how to cope with this fact that the environment isn't stable, and we need to find stability. There's this gap between us and everything else, and we need to find a way to bridge it. And we do so through a process of adaptation. Basically a way of unifying ourselves with the world around us. And we can do this through two different ways. Number one is we can do it externally. We can try to stabilize the environment, which is like how a beaver will build a dam to protect it against the harsh weather conditions and actually provide it easier access to food during the colder months. But also how we've learned about agriculture and controlling the growth of our crops and our food. The other thing, of course, is we can stabilize ourselves, not necessarily consciously, but through many, many, many years of biological tweaks that make us more adaptive to the environment. Like the horned lizard in the deep, dark deserts of Australia where it rains maybe like 2 days a year. And it's developed these horns so that it can funnel what little rainwater it gets directly into its mouth. It's not the most beautiful creature on the earth, but it doesn't matter what you think because it solves the problem. It's still alive today. Or the anglerfish, which is another creature you don't want on your bed. In the deep, dark parts of the ocean, where it's too dark to see anything around you, it actually has developed bioluminescence to see predators and prey. But again, it doesn't matter what you think, it solves the problem. Design has no room for subjectivity, it's all about whether or not it works. And if it doesn't work, you die. But by far the best adaptation that we've had is the one that does both at the same time, one that stabilizes the environment and also ourselves. And that one is our ability to work together, to find community, the understanding that not everything out there in the environment is a threat, that actually some things can actually help you. Now, community is simply a group whose members share things in common, and we can help each other. It's literally common unity amongst individuals. And in the wild, it's amazing because it does stabilizing the environment. A group of deer can warn each other about impending danger in the distance. A group of fish can swim together to form larger than their predators. They can work together to take down larger prey. They can huddle together during the colder months, or if they're afraid of Morgan Freeman. But it also does something very interesting, is that it actually changes our own biochemistry. We actually have this drug called, this body chemical called oxytocin, literally called the love drug, that allows us to bond with one another. There's no reason why these meerkats hug, but they do. We start to see this bonding between animals. Yeah, you guys like that picture, right? So why does this work? Why would we be able to figure out who in the environment is a threat and who isn't? Well, it's really based on this very, very simple notion of trust. It's basically what separates everything in the environment from things that are in our community. And trust is simply the inherent recognition of sameness and stability in someone or something else, right? It's two things. So sameness is, I see you and me. And stability is, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be exactly what I need you to be. And in doing so, we form this very, very strong bond that underlines everything about how we as a society operate. And in fact, we've been so good about working together for so long that we've actually been able to change our environment completely so that most of us in the first world don't even live in the once chaotic environment we used to. Many of us actually just live in society. That is our environment now. But that comes with, of course, many more problems, because it's not like you just find stability and you're done. And that comes with this problem of loneliness. You see, in order for us to build trust and to understand each other, we come with this awareness of everything around us. And in that awareness, we realize that we're just like everybody else. And yet we're not, because we have our own individual feelings and our thoughts and our hopes and our dreams. And we worry that awareness of ourselves, that difference, will separate us from everything else around us. And because we're biologically programmed to seek out others for safety, we worry that this difference might likely cause us to not exist at all in the first place. And indeed, we're all so much together, but we're all dying of loneliness. So what do? Well, we have to figure out a way for the community to see that we're actually a valuable member of it. And we do so through this process of finding our identity, which is literally a visible representation about one's purpose and oneself. It's the interaction between who you are on the inside and who you are on the outside to make visible to the community around you. And it's very important for stabilizing yourself as well as everything around you. So again, we must go through this process of adapting to our environment. Two parts: stabilizing yourself, stabilizing everything around us. So, like this bird, for example, will go out into the woods and find all these little shiny objects and bring it back to its nest. It's found things out there and it's brought them closer. It says, this is the stuff that I like right here. You might have seen your dog do that with shoes or toys. When I was a kid, I curated a collection of miniature animals, and I organized them in a town because I didn't really like the real town I was living in. And come on, we all did this, it's all right. We collected other things, Beanie Babies, right? It wasn't just me. We collect music, right? Obviously there's a lot of music out there, but the music that you have in your collection says something about who you are. Collect things for our home to show our friends about our travels. We even collect people. We call them friends, but it's really just based on the same notion of trust, inherent recognition of sameness and stability in someone or something else. Anything you can find outside of yourself, you want to bring closer, because that's one way of stabilizing the world around you. Of course, there's another thing you can do, which is you can work to stabilize yourself. You can teach yourself how to do things. You can learn. You can build things. Right? You can actually build things that come from within that change the world around you. You can perform, you can express yourself, you can do yoga and fitness, anything that you can do to make yourself more suitable for the world around you. But the problem is that we ourselves do not change as quickly as we can change the environment. 50 years ago, the environment was not nearly as complicated as it is now, let alone 500 years. And when you consider that evolution took billions of years, this is a tiny little blip. There's no way we're going to change ourselves that fast. We don't live in this once rural environment that we grew up in as early humans for millions of years. Instead, for most of us in the first world, we live in something like this, an environment where we can get all of our physiological needs met as long as you can pay for it. If you want to find friends, there's a lot of people out there. We don't live among trees anymore. There's people everywhere we go. If you want to go to the store to buy some food, well, there's 47 varieties of cereal and 20 brands of chocolate and 3 kinds of cat litter. If you want to read a book to learn how to do something, you go to the bookstore and there's thousands of books written by thousands of people over thousands of years. And that's just in one bookstore. And then there's the online bookstore as well. If you want to go buy some clothes to show off to everybody else how good you look, there's 4 levels of clothing in a store, and that's just in one mall, of which there are lots, countless. It's overwhelming. You want to find some friends, there's also millions of people out there. So our choices are large, but our needs are very simple and small. So what are we going to do? There's actually some good news here. A man is rich in proportion to the things that he can leave alone. So we really don't need that much. It's just a matter of figuring out what we do need. And the good news is that we are not alone in this process. Everybody else in society is trying to do the same thing, trying to figure out who we are as individuals. So the best thing we have, the best tool we have to adapt is actually each other. Being able to interact with the community to figure out what our needs are and what everybody else's needs are, a process through which I'm calling conversation. Conversation literally is the exchange of thoughts and ideas and information and stories. It's how we tell the community what we need and how we receive feedback from them to help us along. So social design really is just a design strategy that encourages and facilitates conversation, with the end goal being for our own personal happiness of figuring out who we really are. Now, it may seem like this is something that's been going on now recently in like the last 5 years, but we've been doing this for a very long time. From the early days of the Egyptian tablets to the printing press and the newspaper and the phonograph and the telegraph and the radio and the telephones and the computer and mobile phones now, we've been on this path basically from a very early age to communicate with one another most effectively, primarily in broadcast form, but more recently in a more intimate setting. And of course, the internet has now taken off in a separate direction, allowing Facebook to start the trend and like lots of these other sites to continue it. And that's why we are here today. Why? Because the internet is the best design tool, even though we have sites like this. I noticed I could see some cringes, even with the lights in my face. Yeah. These are not the tools that we are used to using now, but these are the ones that showed up in the first half of the web. Not necessarily the best design for what we want. Why is that? Well, the internet and the computer system is a two-dimensional space that changes very quickly and very rapidly and very randomly, and yet the 3D universe is a lot more stable for us. So it makes sense to build our technology around things that we know in the real world. That's why companies like Apple have been so successful, because they model it off what you already know. But when it comes to conversation, our real world is actually pretty limiting because we're required to be in the same space as somebody in order to communicate. So because the internet lacks this one dimension, we can actually transcend and redesign it. What does it look like to design a conversation tool that doesn't require space? So if you go back to this notion of design, right, it's the fulfillment of a need that the environment elicits. Well, our environment just got a lot smaller. There's no space. So what do? Well, we have to talk about needs. And if only we had a way to figure out what our human needs are. Oh, there's a field called psychology. That's great. Well, this guy, Maslow, put together this hierarchy of needs, which I love, which basically just outlines our needs as humans, from our physiological needs of food and water and sleep, to our safety needs of not getting killed, to our needs of belonging with others and our needs of self-esteem, and then ultimately our self-actualization. We can literally just relabel these with the environmental challenges that we face, from existence to our environment to our community and identity, and ideally this nirvana that we attack at some point. But the problem is we're at this roadblock right now between the identity and the community. This is where social design comes into play. This is where we can sort of start our journey along this path. So self-esteem and belonging, that's what we're really solving for here. But it's interesting because self-esteem and belonging are actually interconnected. You get self-esteem from feeling belonging, and once you do have self-esteem, you do feel like you belong more. So really what we're going for is this notion of connection. We want to be connected to the world around us, to the people, to the ideas, to the objects, to everything we come in contact with. And anytime you see any kind of social product, this is what it's trying to solve, connection. We can take this actually literally. The Web 1.0 world was based on a variety of text documents on the internet, and there was no structure. Information was displayed in line, and you would just sort of jump from website to website. In fact, the only structure that it had were the HTML tags that linked them together. And then Google comes along and it organizes these. But the problem is that these links have no depth. You don't know necessarily how one thing is linked to another. And then again, the website, because it has so much information posted in line, we don't even know what we're talking about. And so it's a little bit complicated. Search algorithms can only do so much because we don't quite know. We're just looking at the links and the strength of the links and then matching text values. But the Web 2.0 world actually starts to say, wait, what are the objects that we're talking about? Well, we're talking about this person, we're talking about this place, about this company, about this music artist. And then we're going to talk about how everything is actually linked together. And these links now have definition. They have a depth to them. I worked at Facebook. I went to Paris. I'm friends with Jim. I like Boston. I went to Penn. Adam also likes me. That's good. I lived in San Francisco. And now we build up this connected graph of information that actually understands what we're talking about and how everything is connected. And when we look at these edges, from a time perspective and how they actually form, we can start to see various pathways through this graph. And like, well, what does that matter? Well, actually, the pathway is the most important thing because to us, as constrained by time, as is the thing about this universe, when we look at everything from a time perspective, we start to see things happen. I moved to San Francisco, I worked at Facebook, I started doing improv, I was tired about living out west, I moved to New York, founded a company, et cetera. What does this provide? It just provides a narrative, which is literally just connection over time, which provides us with purpose and wholeness and unity and stability. For years, storytelling has been the most powerful form of communications precisely because of this truth. And why is it that this provides this stability for us? Because it proves to us that things in life don't just diverge and go their separate ways forever, but in fact, all the different narratives of things happening, they swirl around each other, and at various points, they actually reconverge. And it's at these reconvergence points where we find our most happiness, because we realize that, oh, you know what, it's not that chaotic at all. Even in the 60s and the 50s, Charles Eames, who's a really great actual product designer, said that eventually everything connects, people and ideas and objects. And in the end, it's these connections that give the product its life. Or as I would say, really, it's the connections that give you your life. This connection, this bond, when you tell your story, and you can tell it as clearly as you can, you're able to connect the person on a much more physiological level so that they feel what you feel. And when they feel what you feel and you feel what they feel, then you realize that it's not just a matter of you and them and a separation, but actually you are just one element. There is no you, there is no them, there's just us. And that's all we are. And in all of our searching for meaning, the only thing that we found that makes the emptiness more bearable is each other. Thank you.